Welcome to Nautilus TV. I'm Deborah McPherson, the Union's web editor. With me is Super Yacht Master and Nautilus member, Captain Chris Durham. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, Deborah. Great to be here. Thanks for having me today.
So, Chris, you've worked on quite a variety of yachts in your 18-year maritime career, I believe. So tell us a bit about you, how you got into yachting.
Fell into the industry quite by coincidence, really. I did my A-levels in the UK and then decided to take a year out and went traveling and spent a year in Canada, and then ended up spending some time in New Zealand, initially in the South Island and then moving up to the North Island. And I found myself a summer job in a shipyard. I was a painter's labourer for a few months, and it wasn't the nicest of jobs, but it was a great introduction to the industry. And there were some sailing vessels and motor vessels that were currently in the shipyard. And after spending some time talking to the crew, I kind of realised I was on the wrong side of the fence, and decided actually, leaving on one of these boats would be way cooler than continuing here for a few more months. So that was initially what planted the seed. And then kind of went from there. I ended up finding a position on a sailing boat and spending some time on smaller sailing vessels before finally going back to the UK to do a few courses and then looking for a job as a deckhand on a yacht.
Your maritime career, so far it's been in the yacht sector, but it sounds like you've worked on a variety of vessels. Can you give us some examples and tell us how they kind of differ from each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I initially started on sailing vessels, spent some time on a 20-meter trimarang and a 15-meter catamaran, number of crossings, and then kind of went back to the UK, did my STCW, ENG1, powerboat level 2, so very basic entry-level courses, and then went to Florida to find myself a job on a yacht. And I, in the end, found a position on a 60-meter motor yacht, and from there stayed with the same owners for just under 4 years, and transitioned from a 60-meter motor yacht to a 90-meter motor yacht. So that was a really interesting period, being part of a new build. Great, very lucky to be on a 60 and then a 90-meter quite early in my career. And since that, I've jumped around on a few different types of vessels, spending again some time on smaller boats. Spent a year on a 20-meter Oyster, sailing around South America, and lucky enough to visit Antarctica and the Falklands. So that was a really memorable year. And more recently, before I joined Savannah, I was part of a fleet and worked on a fast support craft. So for those of you that don't know what that is, that's a vessel that supports a larger yacht. So usually a helicopter pad, we had a submarine, we had a dive chamber, a hospital, so much more of a commercial style vessel, lots of operations. We didn't have any guests that slept on board. So a really interesting couple of years getting my teeth stuck into dive operations and heli operations, and lots of heavy lifting, large tenders being lifted on and off the deck. So yeah, that was a great few years. And then 7.5 years ago, I joined MY Savannah as chief officer. And yeah, haven't looked back since. Been captain for the last three years on board. So initially starting as chief officer and then moving into the captain's role.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about what's special about the Savannah.
Yeah, Savannah, she is a special boat. Just about 10 years old now. But when she was launched in 2015, she was the first hybrid yacht in the world. And so, yeah, quite an interesting propulsion and power management system, up to fuel savings of up to about 25 to 30%. So, yeah, some really great advantages. We have a lot of redundancy as well. So we have a number of different ways in which we can take power. So we can take power from the batteries. We have 1 megawatt hour battery bank, and then we burn diesel with diesel generators, and then we also have a large medium speed commercial engine which can actually, for a PTI PTO, power everything. The whole form is also quite interesting and unique. We're quite slender, and we have 2 propellers located centrally. So usually on a conventional yacht, you'd have 2 propellers side by side, but we have 2 central propellers, with the aft being a 360 azimuth azipod, and then the forward being a forward controllable pitch prop, which is slightly larger than normal size propellers to improve efficiencies and reduce vibrations. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on.
Yes.
Takes a little bit to get used to. We operate in 5 different modes, so that's probably the biggest difference from sailing on a conventional yacht. So as we're sailing from the port, moving out into pilotage waters, and then moving to coastal waters, we're changing modes, and then we would change mode again if we were to do a longer passage. So yeah, certainly some additional considerations that you'd have above and beyond the normal kind of navigational considerations, but incredibly maneuverable vessel, and yeah, lots of fun to drive. And yeah, in 10 years, we actually haven't missed or we haven't had to cancel or delay or postpone any trips or charters. So we've got a lot of redundancy in where we can take power from. And if we lose an engine, we have enough backup to kind of continue on with operations.
So I believe the Savannah also has used some future fuels. Can you explain a bit about what they are and how you found them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we bunkered HVO fuel about 2 years ago now. And HVO, for those of you who don't know, is hydrotreated vegetable oil. It's a type of biofuel, and it comes with it some great benefits of substantial reduction in emissions. And you're able to burn HVO in a conventional diesel engine. So there's very minimal changes required to systems on board, but great benefits. The price point is obviously a consideration. It fluctuates as the price of fuel and diesel does. But I think, slowly it's coming down in price. Considerations also for where you can actually obtain it. Geographically, it's not available everywhere. In Europe, it's fairly easy to bunker HVO now. But yeah, it's interesting how kind of seems that so little is known about HVO. I had a lot of captains reach out after we bunkered it, asking how did it go, what was it like. I think there's a bit of a hangover from previous biofuels which cause problems, and you certainly need to still dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that you're taking HVO from a sustainable place. Comes with a certificate that you've got, approval from flag and class and engine manufacturers, and you talk it through thoroughly with your management company. But yeah, it seems to be a little bit of a gap in the awareness, certainly in the yachting industry. I know Nautilus have done a number of great articles on future fuels, and so I think a lot of my knowledge has come from HVO, and on HVO has come from reading articles from Nautilus. But
Yes, well, there's certainly a lot to consider, including the challenges and training, which is what our members are also concerned about, interested in for the future.
absolutely.
So thanks for that insight. It's really interesting. Well, so what do you see, looking back so far, what do you see as some of your main career highlights, do you think?
I think I'd have to say, 2024, and a successful 2024 was probably one of the highlights of my career so far. It was a really, really busy year. We were operating kind of right to the limit in terms of how many charters and how many trips we did. if we weren't on charter, then we were sailing from A to B to prepare for a charter. And so really, yeah, it's just super proud of the team and the crew for accomplishing a great 2024. And often it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but for a captain, actually, when nothing happens is actually when you're the kind of happiest, when you didn't have any kind of major issues to deal with.
That does sound very impressive. But no doubt you've also faced some challenges during your career. What would you say have been some of your biggest challenges so far?
Biggest challenges, I think, probably the first rotation as captain, just over 3 years ago. A lot of sleepless nights. It's hard to describe and really convey the amount of responsibility and weight you feel, especially, chief officer, you've got responsibility, you've got a lot going on, but you've done your 12-hour shift for the day, and you go downstairs and you kind of go to your cabin, and you can switch off. When you're the captain, you're sleeping next to the bridge. You don't really ever switch off, especially when you're kind of getting to, you do become more comfortable, and it does get slightly easier with time. But certainly the stress and the pressure was, yeah, it was real. Felt that in those initial months. What helped me a huge amount during that time was I just completed a course. It happened that I, was just about finishing that course after 6 months. It was a command and leadership course from the Crew Academy. And it was a fantastic course and really gave me lots of, gave me confidence, but gave me lots of skills and tools that I could fall back on. And also a wonderful network of experienced captains and other mentors.
You're on a yacht which seems to pay attention to crew welfare very well. And so tell me some of your thoughts on the captain's responsibility for crew, guests, and the assets.
I see leadership as a type of service. We're there to serve the team, serve the crew. Really, really lucky on board Savannah that we've had an incredible owner who has always put a lot of time and effort into the human element and sees that as an absolute priority. And I share those, very similar values in that if you look after the crew, then they're going to look after the guests, and ultimately they're going to look after the vessel as well. So
sure.
From really, from the design of Savannah, how the cabins were designed, the crew mess, the crew using the guest gym. We have excellent gym facilities, all the way through to the mental health support that we provide crew, fantastic health insurance. The human element and the crew well-being has always been incredibly important for me and for the program.
Oh, that's interesting. And as you say, you're lucky to have a supportive owner.
Yeah, something that a lot of people don't know is that I'm also a paramedic. About 12 years ago, 13 years ago, working on deck on one of the yachts, and we were alongside in the port of Naples, and unfortunately we had a pretty serious medical incident happen on board, and I was one of the first people to attend this incident, and at the time had very minimal training, had my first aid STCW training, was administering first aid, kind of looking over, expecting the chief officer or the captain to come and assist, and that never happened. And he made a full recovery. The paramedics arrived and took him to hospital, and from that point on, I said to myself, if I'm ever in a position of responsibility or end up being a captain in the future, then I don't want to be that chief officer or that captain. So yeah, I guess coming back around to crew wellbeing and crew welfare, the responsibility for people's lives, the guests and the crew, has always been something really important to me. And so from that point, I decided to carry on my medical studies, and it's taken me to a number of places, but initially starting in South Africa, studied a remote medic course at Ronin in Cape Town, which is a fantastic course. Onwards, I continued the journey and spent time in Mexico, volunteering with the Green Cross and the Red Cross, acquiring more hours. And then in the end, I ended up completing my diploma in paramedical science in America, and then actually finally transferred that over to the NHS. And so I'm a UK registered paramedic as well as a sailor. I think interestingly, another element that I didn't appreciate or expect when I was going through the medical training was how well it equips you for high stress and high pressure situations, non-medical situations. I think that really has helped me to remain calm and level-headed and think clearly in times of stress and pressure, whether it be, you know, navigation or operations on board or HR decisions.
You've been a Nautilus member for 7 years now. So what made you join?
And I joined when I was looking to validate my sea time for my master's license. So that was actually what initially spurred me to join. And I mean, Nautilus does so much, and really enjoyed reading the Nautilus magazine every month, and it's really expanded my understanding and knowledge of varying parts of the maritime industry. And I know Nautilus does a huge amount of work, especially for the yachting industry, with fighting to get people's unpaid wages back. You know, the Nautilus are doing a great job, and yeah, very happy to support. And I think, yeah, big thank you to everybody at Nautilus for all the great work that they do for everybody in the maritime industry.
Oh, that's good to hear. And have you used our online service record, our new online service record system?
Oh, I'm yet to test. I haven't had to revalidate my sea time since the digital service part of your website came in, but I will be when I renew my master's license for sure.
Do you have any thoughts about where the future of seafaring careers is headed?
Yeah, great question. I think you only have to look as far as, you know, the companies and corporate environments ashore in London and in varying cities around the world to see that this new generation, Gen Z, you know, they're acquiring and expecting more. I really think that we need to try to catch up at sea and in the maritime industry and do more for our employees in varying ways, and also create more diverse and equal environments, making sure the crew mess is, you know, is a safe space, increasing awareness of harassment and bullying. Yeah, I think there's a lot of education and awareness and improvements to be made. But having said that, you know, I'd still 100% recommend for young people to take a career at sea. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to travel the world, experience different cultures, meet fantastic people. So even though I grew up close to the coast, I really had no idea of a career at sea. And it was only through, you know, meeting actual crew members that I was kind of, you know, the yachting industry really opened up to me. And I think, you know, we could do a lot as an industry to go into schools and colleges and make people more aware.
I mean, it's interesting because your career trajectory didn't take the usual route. You took the yachting route to becoming a captain, didn't you, to the Master 3000? Can you just give us a brief overview of how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of an apprenticeship as opposed to, so we still go to college, we still spend time in maritime colleges, but you usually do that in more of a modular format, whereas with the unlimited route, it takes a little bit more time and you spend more time, larger sections of time at college. We have a similar structure whereby we have officer of the watch 3,000 tons, and then you have chief mate 3,000 tons, and then you have master 3,000 tons. So each step requires a different amount of sea time and sea service. And in those first years, you also have a training record book, which is much like similar to an apprenticeship would have, whereby you'd go to the chief engineer, go to the chief officer to get different elements ticked off whether that be safety or bridge or splicing or tender driving or operations in the engine room. You kind of go through your training record book. So it's a great option. I think if I had my time again, I'd love to be in a position now where I have my unlimited ticket. I think if you're coming into the industry, you know, in your late teens or early 20s, then it's worth investing that time to go unlimited, just because it gives you more options later route. And now there seems to be a bit more crossover between commercial and the yachting tickets, in that quite a lot of commercial officers and engineers are coming into the yachting industry. So there seems to be more awareness, and also MCA have started to accept yachting time of a certain size vessel towards their commercial unlimited tickets. So,
oh, thank you for those really useful insights and good advice. So wrapping up, where do you see the future of your own career?
That's the $1 million question. I think I have a few more years at sea for sure. I've been looking into taking an MBA in business and leadership. So hopefully one day I either have my own business or transition to work in a business for sure. So
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you, Deborah. Yeah, it's been great chatting.